All right, so let's dive into something that might just change how you think about learning, especially when it comes to kids.
Okay.
Ever wish those multiplication tables or memorizing all 50 states could be well fun?
It does sound kind of crazy, right? But that's exactly what this program Memory Builder for Kids, or MB4K, claims to do.
Right.
And you've sent over some fascinating material on it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you know what I find so compelling? It wasn't some big education company that cooked this up.
Mm-hmm.
This program started with a parent just trying to help his own son, William.
That's what's so fascinating here.
Yeah.
This dad facing that pandemic homeschooling challenge,
Oh, yeah.
realized the memory techniques he'd learned later in life for his MBA and certifications
Right.
could actually work for a kindergartner.
Okay, that's kind of wild. What kind of results are we talking about here? Was this kid suddenly reciting Shakespeare?
Pretty close. William was doing multiplication and division before second grade, and he had all 50 states memorized in alphabetical order, which, honestly, I'm not sure I can do right now.
See, that's the thing. We tend to think of these things as kid challenges, but honestly, wouldn't you love to have a memory boost like that?
Absolutely. And it speaks to a key point about MB4K.
Okay.
It's not just about memorizing facts for a test. It's about giving kids, and maybe even us grown-ups, the tools to learn anything more effectively.
Okay, so let's unpack those tools a bit.
Yeah.
You mentioned in your notes 2 techniques MB4K focuses on, the linking memory technique and the mnemonic major system.
Right.
Those sound pretty intense. Are we talking brain surgery here?
Not at all. They sound complex, but they're based on simple principles anyone can use.
Yeah.
Take the linking memory technique. Let's say you need to remember that Sacramento is the capital of California, right?
Not the easiest one to remember.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So instead of just repeating it over and over, you create a vivid, maybe even ridiculous image in your mind.
Okay.
Imagine a giant sack of money being dropped onto a Mento candy sack. Mento.
Okay. I can see how that would stick with you. And it plays into that idea that the more senses you engage in learning, the better you remember.
Precisely. And that's what makes this so effective for kids, especially visual learners. They naturally gravitate towards those vivid images.
So if the linking technique is about creating these memorable images, what's the mnemonic major system all about?
This one's a bit more structured, but incredibly powerful. It's all about turning numbers into sounds and then those sounds into words, essentially creating a code for remembering any numerical information.
A code. All right, you've got my attention. How does that
Yeah.
work?
So each digit from 0 to 9 gets assigned a consonant sound. For example, 0 becomes S because it makes the S sound and it kind of looks like a 0 with an S in it.
Right.
1 becomes T or D, 2 becomes N, 3 becomes M, and so on.
Okay, I'm starting to see where this is going. So instead of trying to remember a string of numbers, you could create a word.
You got it. And MB4K actually provides a whole list of example words for the numbers 1 to 100, making it even easier for kids to grasp. But it's when they start applying this to real-world examples that it gets really interesting.
You mean like memorizing all 50 states in alphabetical order?
Yeah.
Because I have to admit, I'm incredibly curious how they pull that off. That's exactly what I was hoping we'd get into. Because on the surface, memorizing a list of states alphabetically sounds, well, kind of dull. How does MB4K make it engaging?
By tapping into the power of humor and visual association. Remember how we talked about turning numbers into words with the mnemonic major system?
Yeah, assigning each digit a consonant sound?
Right, so they take that system and apply it to the states, creating these hilarious little stories. For example, Alabama becomes tie on a bum tie, representing the number 1, and bum, well, Alabama, it's silly, it's unexpected, and it sticks in your mind.
Okay, I have to admit I'm already starting to remember that. We're just talking about it.
Exactly, and it just gets better. Alaska becomes Noah, riding a Kodiak bear. Arizona is Mom, blowing a gust of air. They've created these vivid images for all 50 states, each one more outlandish than the last.
That's brilliant. They've
Right.
taken something that could feel like a chore and turned it into a game. And I bet for kids, especially those who learn best visually, these images just come alive in their minds.
Absolutely. It's like creating a mental movie. But here's the real kicker, that mnemonic major system we keep talking about. It's not just for states. It becomes this mental framework for memorizing anything numerical.
Okay, now you're speaking my language. You know, I struggle with remembering dates, phone numbers, all those number
Yeah.
sequences. Are you telling me this system could actually help with that?
That's exactly what the research suggests and what MB4K taps into. Let's say you're trying to remember a historical date like 1492 when Columbus sailed the ocean blue.
See, I even have a mnemonic device for that one, and I still forget it sometimes.
This system would have you covered. You'd break it down. 14 becomes TNR, from 1 and 4, which gives you TR92 becomes P and N, which gives you PN. So 1492 becomes TRPN.
Okay, that is pretty wild. So it's about training your brain to make these connections in a way that feels more natural than just rote memorization.
Precisely. And once you have that system down, the possibilities are kind of endless. Multiplication tables become stories, historical dates become memorable phrases, even complex formulas can be broken down and visualized.
This is making me wish I had learned this way as a kid. It's like they've cracked the code on making learning fun and effective. It's not just about the memory techniques themselves. It's about the confidence and love of learning that come with having those tools.
Exactly. It reminds me of that saying, give a man a fish and you feed him for a day. Teach a man to fish and you feed him for a lifetime. MB4K isn't just giving kids the answers, it's teaching them how to learn for themselves. And that has implications far beyond just acing a test.
Absolutely. And, as we've been diving into this material, I keep coming back to this idea, could the humor, the sheer silliness of those MB4K examples be a bigger part of its success than we realize?
That's a fascinating thought. We know that emotional engagement plays a huge role in memory. We're more likely to remember things that make us laugh, that surprise us, that evoke a strong emotion.
Exactly. Think about it. How many times have you been telling a story and suddenly remembered a tiny detail just because it was linked to something funny or embarrassing?
All the time. It's like our brains are wired to latch onto those emotionally charged moments. And what MB4K has done so brilliantly is create that emotional engagement around things that are traditionally seen as, let's be honest, kind of boring.
Totally. Memorizing multiplication tables.
Yeah,
Not exactly the stuff of stand-up comedy.
yeah.
But when you turn 11 by 12 into dad swinging a ton weight and smashing a demon, suddenly you're not just memorizing, you're creating a mini action movie in your mind.
And that's the beauty of it. It's
Yeah.
taking those dry facts and injecting them with humor, with absurdity, with a sense of play. It's almost like they've stumbled onto a fundamental truth about learning. It's supposed to be fun.
Right. And I think that's such an important takeaway for anyone, regardless of age, who wants to improve their memory and become a more effective learner. Maybe the key isn't just about finding the right technique, but about finding ways to make the process itself enjoyable.
Absolutely, because when you're engaged, when you're curious, when you're having fun, your brain is primed for learning. And that's something I think we often forget as we get older, weighed down by the seriousness of it all.
So true. This has been such an eye-opening deep dive, and I hope it's given our listeners some serious food for thought. Maybe it's time to rethink those old assumptions about learning and embrace a little more playfulness, a little more humor, a little more of that childlike wonder.
Because who knows, maybe the next Einstein will be the kid who learned their ABCs by picturing a dancing giraffe wearing a tutu.
Now that's an image I won't soon forget. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, and we'll catch you next time for another fascinating exploration of, well, just about anything.